Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I managed a retail team at this store a few years back. It was a pretty good job, and I had worked my way up from being just another sales associate. Took me about 3 years of hard work, but I finally got the management position I wanted. My team was solid, we hit our sales targets, had good customer feedback, and generally worked well together. One morning I was in an early meeting with the company owner. He was a decent guy most of the time, though a bit strict sometimes. We were going through our quarterly numbers when my phone rang. I saw it was one of my team members calling, so I answered and put it on speaker out of habit. I greeted him and asked what was going on. He told me that he wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be able to make it in for his shift today. What struck me was that he sounded completely normal. No coughing, no croaky voice, nothing that would show illness. But this team member rarely called in sick, was one of our top performers, and customers loved him. I had no reason to doubt him. I told him not to worry and thanked him for letting me know in advance. I reminded him about getting a sick note if he thought he wouldn't make it in tomorrow and asked if he was clear on the company policy. He said he understood and hoped to see me tomorrow before saying goodbye. I hung up the phone and was about to resume our meeting when the owner started questioning me. He pointed out that my team member didn't sound sick at all and asked what was actually wrong with him. Then he said something that hurt, suggesting that my team must not respect me if they think they can get away with fake sick calls. That comment hurt because I wasn't long in the management position, but I had worked hard to earn it, and I thought I had built good relationships with my team. I disagreed with the owner, pointing out that our team's performance numbers were excellent, as we had just been discussing. I told him I didn't believe my team disrespected me at all. I explained that this team member rarely called in sick, and the specific nature of his illness was not important. I trusted him when he said he was sick because he had never given me a reason not to. The owner didn't seem convinced but dropped the subject. The next day, my team member came in for his shift, and the owner called both of us into his office. The owner began lecturing my employee about commitment to the company, explaining that sick days were only for when you're actually sick and unable to work. He pointed out that my team member hadn't even sounded sick during yesterday's phone call. My team member just started grinning. Then he pulled up his sleeve to reveal a freshly bandaged arm. He asked how he should have sounded on the phone to show his injury. He wondered whether he should have coughed and asked how many stitches it would take to give someone a croaky voice. I laughed. The owner took it well. He was usually a good guy, just a bit worried about employees taking advantage sometimes. Word of this spread quickly through my team, and that's when the malicious compliance began. The next time one of my female team members had to call in sick on a day when they knew I had a meeting with the owner, she put on a show. She called me while dramatically coughing and spluttering. She said sorry for not being able to come in, interrupted by more coughing. She explained that her child had stomach flu, so she needed to take the day off to care for him, all while continuing her fake coughing. A few weeks later, another team member called with an extremely croaky voice. He told me he had twisted his ankle and needed to stay off it for a few days, his voice breaking throughout the conversation. Then another time, a different team member called. She was coughing, spluttering, and speaking with a tired voice. She told me she couldn't make it in because her car wouldn't start, and asked if she could take time off to arrange repairs, all while wheezing and coughing more dramatically. This went on for weeks. Every sick call when they knew the owner might be around was delivered with great acting. The funny part was that the problems often had nothing to do with the symptoms they were faking, like coughing because your car broke down or having a croaky voice for a twisted ankle. The owner noticed. He'd look at me during these calls, and I'd try not to laugh. It all came to an end at our next staff gathering. We usually had beers and a barbecue in the parking lot while talking about upcoming changes for the next quarter. The owner stood up to address everyone, and after going through business matters, he pulled out a small trophy. The owner said he wanted to give an award for best acting in a sick day call to all of them. Everyone laughed as he passed around the little trophy he'd bought as a joke. He told the team that while he liked their commitment to the joke, he thought they could all agree it was time to stop. He said he got their message and promised not to question sick days anymore. The team cheered. The owner was a good sport about it. I worked there for quite a few years. I knew the owner personally before I started working there. While we didn't always agree, he was usually a good guy. He just had some bad experiences with dishonest staff and managers in the past and needed more coffee that morning. Last year, my girlfriend bought her dream house. It was spacious in a great neighborhood and had a beautiful backyard perfect for her 10-year-old daughter to play in. When she asked me to move in with her, I was thrilled. My financial situation wasn't ideal. My credit score was bad, and I already owned a home that I rent out along with lots of debt. But I wanted to help with our new life together. We decided not to put my name on the mortgage or deed. The mortgage payments were $5,000 per month. I paid $2,000 of that, which stretched my budget to the limit. Between my loans, credit card payments, and other expenses, that was all I could manage. But for a chance at building a life with her and her daughter, it seemed worth it. For the first few months, everything went well. I bonded with her daughter, and we felt like a family. Then one evening after dinner, my girlfriend told me something big. She told me she wanted to ask her daughter's father to move in with us. I was shocked and asked if he would really live here with us. She said yes, explaining that co-parenting was hard when they lived separately. She thought having both parents under one roof would be better for their daughter. Living with my girlfriend's ex wasn't something I wanted, but I tried to be mature about it. I asked if she was sure it was a good idea, noting it might be awkward. She said they were both adults who could handle it, and it was best for their daughter. I agreed, trying to believe it could work. I knew she loved her daughter, and I wanted to support her choices. Her ex moved in the following week. At first, he was polite and kept his distance, but things started to change. It started with small things. I come home to find them laughing in the kitchen about old jokes. He'd touch her shoulder or hug her goodbye when leaving for work. He'd make decisions about the house without asking me. One evening I came home early and found them sitting close on the couch, looking through old family photos. The ex talked about a vacation they had taken to the beach, saying how happy their daughter had been. My girlfriend agreed, mentioning how their daughter had built a sandcastle with him and still talked about it. Then he suggested they should go back there in the summer, just the three of them, like before. When he saw me, he didn't seem embarrassed. He just said they were reminiscing and invited me to join if I wanted, but I never felt welcome. Over time, he acted more like the man of the house. He'd take my spot at the dinner table. He'd change my weekend plans. He'd call it our home in conversation. The final straw came during a family movie night. Her daughter sat between them on the couch, and I sat in the armchair. During the movie, he put his arm across the back of the couch behind both his daughter and my girlfriend. She didn't seem to mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I realized I was an outsider in what should be my home. The next morning, I talked to my girlfriend. I told her I felt uncomfortable with how her ex acted around her. She asked what I meant, saying he was just being friendly. I said it was more than that. He acted like they were still together, and I was just a roommate. She said I was imagining things, and he was just there for their daughter. I asked why he needed to be so close with her and act like it was his house and family. She said they would always be family because of their daughter. I reminded her that I was her partner and asked if that mattered. She said it did, but she wouldn't limit how he acted. She said he helped a lot with their daughter, and she needed his support. After weeks of going nowhere with these talks, I decided to move out. I found a small apartment nearby and moved while her ex was at work. When she found out, she was upset. She said I was abandoning them. I said I wasn't doing that to her, but taking care of myself because the situation wasn't healthy. She brought up my financial commitment. I said I still wanted to be with her, but couldn't live in that house with him. She accepted my moving out, but said I still needed to pay the mortgage. I asked why I would pay for a house I didn't live in or own, where I felt unwelcome. She said I had committed to it and couldn't back out because things got uncomfortable. I said calling it uncomfortable was an understatement. Her ex was trying to get back with her right in front of me, and she allowed it. The argument ended with her walking away. Since then, she keeps texting and calling, demanding I move back or keep paying. The last message I sent explained everything clearly. I told her I cared about her and her daughter, but wouldn't pay for a household where I was treated like an outsider. I pointed out that her ex moved in and I moved out so he could pay now. I said when she was ready to put our relationship first, we could talk about our future, but until then, I needed to protect my financial and emotional health. She hasn't answered yet. I don't know what happens next, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm standing up for myself. For context, I've lived in my neighborhood for about 5 years. It's one of those places with a homeowners association, which has its pros and cons. The neighborhood looks nice, property values stay high, but you also deal with people who think the rulebook gives them superhuman authority. I've been saving up to get my cracked, uneven driveway redone for nearly 2 years. Finally had enough set aside and hired a local company to tear out the old concrete and pour a new one. As anyone who's done this knows, it's not a one-day job. The crew had to break up the old driveway, haul away the debris, level the ground, build forms, and then pour fresh concrete that needed time to cure. During this process, I obviously couldn't park in my driveway, so I did what any reasonable person would do, parked my car on the street right in front of my house. Completely legal, mind you. No fire hydrants, no yellow curbs, just normal street parking that everyone in the neighborhood uses occasionally. The renovation was going smoothly until day 3. I was working from home on a conference call in my living room when I happened to look out the window. There was a beat-up tow truck backing up toward my car. No warning, no notice, nothing. I immediately ended my call and ran outside in my socks. I yelled at the guy, asking what he was doing with my car. He barely looked up as he was already hooking the front wheels to his lift. He said he was taking it. I told him that I lived right there, pointing at my house. He said it was homeowners association orders and that I couldn't park there. Something felt very off. The truck had no company name, no license number, nothing. Just a rusty white truck with a tow rig. I asked to see some ID and paperwork for the tow. He told me to take it up with the homeowners association. I said I needed to see his documentation right then, and that he wasn't taking my car without showing proper authorization. He kept working, ignoring me. I stepped closer, blocking his path to the driver's door. I asked again to see his towing license and the paperwork for this removal. He tried to shove past me, but I stood my ground. That's when I noticed he didn't even have a uniform or name badge, just jeans and a stained t-shirt. I asked if he was even a real tow operator. His eyes darted around, and that's when I knew something was very wrong. No real tow company acts like this. I told him to step away from my car right away. Instead, he jumped into the driver's seat of his truck. My car was partially lifted, the front wheels off the ground. He said I should get out of the way or he'd drag it anyway. He started the engine. I reached into my pocket where I keep my licensed firearm. I have a proper permit. When he saw the gun, his eyes went wide. I told him to turn off the engine and get out. Instead, he floored it, with my car still half attached. In a panic, I fired a shot at his rear tire. The truck swerved, dropped my car roughly back to the pavement, and screeched down the street before turning the corner. My hands were shaking as I called the police. They arrived within minutes, took my statement, and put out an alert for the truck. I showed them where my car had been damaged when it was dropped. The officer said this didn't sound like a real tow operation and asked if they had left any paperwork. I said there was nothing, no warning, no paperwork, no company identification. The police took this very seriously. Within 2 hours, they'd found the truck abandoned a few miles away. The guy had fled on foot, but they caught him later that day. Turns out he had prior arrests for auto theft. He wasn't a tow operator at all, just a thief with a tow truck. But the real surprise came during his questioning. He told the police he was hired privately by someone from my homeowners association, a woman on the board who took issue with street parking. The police got a name from him, the vice president of the homeowners association. I knew exactly who it was. Everyone in the neighborhood called her Karen behind her back. She was known for leaving notes on doors about grass height and trash can placement. She complained about my street parking at the last association meeting, even though it was completely within the rules. When the police questioned her, she first denied everything. But faced with the tow driver's testimony and her phone records showing calls to him, she finally admitted the truth. She had hired this random guy with a tow truck to teach me a lesson about street parking. She'd given him $200 to take my car to a lot across town where I'd have to pay to get it back. No paperwork, no legal process, just vehicle theft planned by a homeowners association board member. The police charged her with conspiracy to commit grand theft auto. I filed a lawsuit for damages to my car and emotional distress. The homeowners association voted her off the board that same week. At the court hearing, she cried about how she was just enforcing the rules, though she couldn't point to any rule against temporary street parking during home renovations. The judge wasn't impressed, especially with her hiring an unlicensed criminal tow operator instead of going through proper channels. She ended up with a hefty fine, probation, and an order to pay for all damages to my car. The homeowners association also changed their bylaws to make it clear that temporary street parking is allowed, especially during home repairs. My driveway looks great now, and whenever I see a tow truck in the neighborhood, I make sure it has proper company identification before I let it near my car. I went to see The Accountant 2 yesterday. Decent movie. My wife and I are in our 50s and we don't go out to movies as often as we used to. We chose the 7 p.m. showing because we wanted to avoid the late night crowd. The tickets cost $18 each, which seems crazy compared to what we used to pay when we were younger. We got our seats, settled in with our snacks, and the movie started playing. The problem started with a woman sitting in front of us. She looked to be about our age. At first I didn't notice anything, but my wife kept shifting in her seat. Later she told me that this woman had been turning her phone on and off during the first part of the movie. My wife decided to let it go. But then things got worse. This woman started having a full conversation on her phone during the movie. I could hear her clearly mentioning dinner plans and something about meeting up at 11 a.m. tomorrow. My wife leaned forward and told the woman to please turn off her cell phone. The woman actually did turn it off. For about 20 minutes, everything was fine. Then I noticed the blue glow again. She had her phone back out and was texting someone. The bright screen was impossible to ignore in the dark theater. I nudged my wife, but she just shook her head, not wanting to cause another scene. So we tried to focus on the movie despite the distraction. When the movie ended and everyone was getting ready to leave, this woman turned around to talk to my wife. She asked my wife if her cell phone had been bothering her. My wife told her that yes, it had been bothering her. The woman then asked how it had been bothering her. My wife told her that it was distracting during the movie and that cell phones aren't supposed to be on during movies. The woman asked how her little phone could distract my wife from the big screen. My wife told her that yes, it was bright and she had been talking. The woman asked what she was supposed to tell her grandchildren when she didn't answer them. My wife told her she could tell them she was in a movie and couldn't talk now. The woman started to say she didn't understand how my wife got to make these decisions. I noticed a few other people from the theater had stopped to watch this exchange. A teenage boy nearby was even recording it on his phone. One older man nodded in agreement with my wife. I'd had enough of this nonsense. I raised my voice and told the woman it was unbelievable that she wasn't allowed to have a cell phone on during a movie and was trying to make us the bad guys. I told her to shut her entitled butt up. I said butt so they couldn't claim I cursed at them. The woman's husband looked shocked and started to question what I had just said. He had been quiet the whole time, probably embarrassed by his wife's behavior. Now he stepped forward like he was going to defend her. I told my wife it was time for us to go, and we left the theater. As we walked away, I could hear the woman loudly complaining to everyone around that we had been rude to her. She claimed she had only been checking on her sick grandchild. This was a new detail she hadn't mentioned during our conversation. A theater employee approached them, probably because of the commotion. I hate entitled people who break rules that everyone follows and then try to make the people who call them out seem wrong. On the drive home, my wife and I talked about how ridiculous the situation was. We stopped for ice cream, spending $7 each on large cones. My wife mentioned that the same woman had done something similar at the beginning of the movie to the couple on her other side. Apparently, they had asked her to be quiet and she had given them the same attitude. Why do some people think the rules don't apply to them? The movie theater plays that announcement before every film telling people to silence their phones and not talk. It's not some secret rule. What bothered me most was her excuse about her grandchildren. If she was so worried about missing a call from them, she shouldn't have gone to a movie. Or she could have stepped out to take a call. There were plenty of options that didn't involve disturbing everyone. The next morning, I was surprised to see a video on social media of our encounter. The teenager who had been recording had posted it with the caption, "Karen gets called out at movies." It already had over 2,000 views. My wife said the woman probably wasn't used to being called out. People like that often go through life bothering others without anyone saying anything because most people don't want conflict. Well, not us. Not that day. I don't regret what I said. A friend who works at the theater later told me that this woman is actually known for this behavior. She's been warned several times about using her phone during movies. The manager has considered banning her, but she always has some excuse about family emergencies. Next time we go to a movie, I hope we can just enjoy it without dealing with someone who thinks rules don't apply to them. But if it happens again, I won't hesitate to speak up. I manage a small perfume shop in the local mall for about 3 years now. It's a decent job with good benefits, reasonable hours, and I like helping people find scents that make them happy. But like any retail job, you sometimes deal with people who think the world revolves around them. Company policy is clear about closing time. The mall closes at 9 p.m., but we lock our doors 5 minutes after that for any last-minute shoppers. Anyone who comes in during that grace period can stay and shop until about the 15-minute mark, giving them enough time to make their purchases. Last Friday was slow. We hadn't hit our sales target for the day, which meant I needed to follow the 5-minute rule. At 9:04 p.m., I was standing near the entrance, keys in hand, ready to lock up when a couple hurried toward the store. They rushed in just as I was about to turn the lock. The woman wore an expensive-looking coat and the man had that impatient look I recognize in people who aren't used to being told no. I told them that I'd be locking the doors in about a minute and that the mall was closed. The woman said was surprised that they were shopping. I explained that I understood but was following company policy and told them they could look around, but I needed to lock the doors behind them. The man rolled his eyes but didn't say anything as they walked past me into the store. I locked the front door and returned to my closing duties, keeping an eye on them while I straightened the display counters. They wandered around for a couple of minutes before the woman picked up one of our expensive bottles. She asked me how much it cost. I was counting the register, which I needed to finish before leaving. I put down what I was doing and walked over. I told her it was from our premium collection and cost $175. The man frowned and asked about the smaller one. I told him the smaller bottle was $120. They looked at each other, having some silent conversation that married couples develop over time. I took a step back and continued organizing the nearby display while staying close in case they had more questions. I wasn't trying to rush them. They still had about 8 minutes before I needed to ask them to leave. The woman called out to me asking if I was just going to walk away. I turned, confused, and asked if they needed something else. The man said they were customers and asked if I should be helping them. I told them I was right there if they had questions and was just tidying up while they decided. The woman held her purse tighter and said the situation was ridiculous. She said they were trying to spend money and I was more concerned with cleaning. I was confused. I hadn't abandoned them. I was 5 feet away, clearly available for questions. I said sorry for giving them that impression and told them I was happy to help with anything they needed. The man put the perfume bottle down hard and said to forget it. They were leaving. They walked toward the front door, and I hurried to unlock it before they got there. As I was turning the key, I noticed another man outside trying to pull on the door handle. I opened the door for the couple and told the man outside that I was sorry, but the mall was closed. My tone was professional, the same voice I'd used to tell someone we're out of a fragrance. As the couple walked out, the woman turned back to me and told me I needed to fix my attitude. Then they left, leaving me standing there confused. The man who had been trying to get in looked between me and the couple and asked if everything was okay. I told him I had no idea what just happened. I locked the door again and finished closing, thinking about the interaction. Had I been rude without knowing it? I'd followed policy, answered their questions, and stayed available while giving them space. I hadn't rushed them or made them feel unwelcome. When I got home that night, I told my roommate about what happened. My roommate said some people just want to be treated like royalty. I said I was being polite and had run to unlock the door for them. My roommate said that's retail. Some people could get free money and would still complain about how the bills were folded. The next morning I worried they might call corporate to complain, but nothing happened. A week later, I saw them shopping at the clothing store across from us during regular hours. The woman was arguing with a sales associate about a return policy. Some people just want the world to bend to their will. I'm not sure what attitude I was supposed to fix. Being professional while following rules doesn't seem like something that needs fixing. The whole thing wasn't that bad, but it stuck with me. In 3 years of retail management, I've learned that you can provide good service, follow all the rules, and still meet people who think you've wronged them. I've also learned that fix your attitude usually means let me do whatever I want, whenever I want. Maybe next time I'll pretend to be thrilled that they're shopping 4 minutes after closing time, but I doubt even that would satisfy customers like these. I moved to Japan 3 years ago. Back home in Chicago, I kept to myself mostly. That changed when I got the opportunity to teach English at a small university in Yokohama. Moving to Japan wasn't easy. The language barrier, the cultural differences, the feeling of being an outsider, it was all overwhelming at first. But the kindness of the Japanese people helped me adjust. They were patient with my broken Japanese, helpful when I got lost, and forgiving of my cultural missteps. Their respect and consideration became something I deeply appreciated. I learned that in Japan, following rules isn't just about compliance, it's about respecting the collective harmony. So when I saw another American ignoring cafe rules and taking advantage of the language barrier, something in me snapped. It happened at Cafe Harmony, my regular spot near the university. I go there 3 times a week to grade papers and prepare lessons. The staff knows me by now and always greets me with warm smiles. They make the best matcha latte in town, and the quiet atmosphere is perfect for working. That day I was grading midterm essays when I noticed him, a muscular guy with a military-style haircut, sitting diagonal from me at the large table. He had a half-empty can of Sprite that he'd clearly brought in from outside. In Cafe Harmony, like most cafes in Japan, there's a rule that you buy something if you're taking up space inside. At first, I didn't pay much attention. Maybe he was waiting for someone or was about to order. But after 20 minutes, one of the staff members, a young woman who always tried her best with English customers, approached him. The staff member told him that he needed to order something if he wanted to stay inside and offered to bring him a menu. But the military guy barely looked up from his phone, giving her a dismissive wave. He told her no thank you in a tone that made it clear he wasn't going anywhere, despite the fake smile on his face. The staff member looked confused but bowed slightly and walked away. I could see her distress as she talked to her co-workers. 10 minutes later, a Japanese customer who was leaving stopped by his table. The older man tried to explain the cafe rule that customers must buy a drink or food to sit inside. Again, the military guy dismissed him with a polite-sounding refusal, saying he was good as he was. The Japanese man looked uncomfortable and walked away. By this point, I was getting irritated. This guy knew exactly what they were trying to tell him. He wasn't confused, he was deliberately ignoring them. The final straw came when the manager herself, a middle-aged woman whose English was limited to cafe-related phrases, approached him. She tried her best to explain the cafe policy, pointing to the menu and then to his outside drink, making it clear he needed to order something and couldn't just sit there. Once more, the military guy brushed her off with a polite-sounding refusal and empty words of appreciation. The manager looked helpless. She bowed and went back to the counter, where I could see her talking with the staff what to do next. That's when I'd had enough. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and moved over to his table. I told him that if he wasn't going to order something, he should probably leave and that he didn't need to be a jerk about it. The military guy was surprised that someone had called him out in English. He told me to mind my own business. I told him that the staff had asked him 3 times to either order something or leave and that this wasn't a public park. I pointed out that he was taking advantage of the staff's politeness since they were too polite to kick him out. He dismissed me just like he had dismissed the staff, telling me he hadn't asked for my opinion before going back to his phone. I went back to my seat angry but feeling like I'd at least tried to stand up for the cafe workers. About 15 minutes later, 3 more guys with similar haircuts entered the cafe. 2 of them went to the counter and ordered drinks, while the third joined my Sprite-sipping friend at the table. They were talking loudly, taking up more space than necessary. I tried to focus on my work, but it was hard with a noisy group nearby. They stayed for almost an hour, and I noticed how uncomfortable the other Japanese customers looked. Some even left early. When they finally decided to leave, one of them, a tall guy with a buzz cut, stopped at my table. He leaned in slightly, not exactly threatening, but definitely invading my personal space. In an eerily calm tone that felt almost threatening despite his forced politeness, he asked if I was having a good day. When I didn't answer, he repeated the question. I finally looked him in the eye and told him I had been having a good day until people started disrespecting the staff. He asked the same question a 3rd time. I refused to be baited and told him that his friend knew the rules and chose to ignore them, and if he had a problem with me pointing that out, that was on him. The manager had noticed the confrontation and was hovering nearby, looking worried. Not wanting to cause her more trouble, I suggested that he should join his friends who were waiting for him. He looked at me for a moment longer before walking away to join his group. As they left, I heard them laughing loudly as if the whole thing had been a joke to them. After they left, the manager came to my table. She thanked me and mentioned these were very difficult customers. I said sorry for the situation and told her that not all Americans behaved like that. She told me that they had security cameras and those men wouldn't be welcome anymore. She even mentioned that she would call the military base if there were problems again in the future. I was shocked. This wasn't the first time they'd had issues with military personnel, and they had a contact at the base for reporting bad behavior. The following week, I was back at Cafe Harmony when I noticed a new sign in both Japanese and English by the entrance stating that all customers must purchase items to use their space and that no outside food or drinks were allowed. The manager smiled when she saw me reading it and gave me a free matcha latte. A month later, I was at the cafe when the military guy and one of his friends tried to come in again. The manager pointed to the sign and then showed them something on her phone, probably photos from the security camera. They looked embarrassed and left without argument. I like making food last. My parents taught us to share everything equally. A chocolate bar could be my treat for weeks, having a small piece each day. My family was patient about food, making sure everyone got their fair share. Then I met my fiancé. I love the guy. We've been together for 13 years now, and we're solid. But with food, especially treats, he's like a tornado. His family had this first come, first serve rule for everything edible. If you didn't grab it fast, it was gone. He grew up just eating whatever was available without thinking. His upbringing with 4 siblings meant food disappeared quickly at his house. His mom would cook for 6 people, but only make enough for 5. This created a survival of the fastest mentality around their dinner table. He told me once how he learned to eat standing up because sitting down took too much time. These habits don't change overnight. I made some rules early on. The chocolate bar problem was our first food fight. He would eat entire chocolate bars, meant for both of us. I told him half is mine, half is yours. He improved over time, even replacing chocolate he ate by mistake. We had other incidents too. There was the birthday cake situation in our 3rd year together. I baked myself a small cake and saved half for the next day. When I woke up, I found an empty cake container and him sleeping with chocolate crumbs on his face. That led to our first serious talk about food boundaries. Then came the leftover lasagna episode 2 years later. My grandmother made her a special recipe that takes 8 hours to prepare. I had one portion and saved another for lunch at work. He ate it for a midnight snack without asking. Each time he apologized and meant it, but old habits kept resurfacing. I thought we were past this phase after 10 years together. We'd established a system where special foods got labeled with our names. It worked pretty well for a while. But yesterday, this food issue came back. My mom visited and brought us a tub of pulled pork from a fancy butcher shop. It wasn't cheap, about $35 for what should have been 4 servings. Pulled pork is rare where we live. You can't find it in regular stores, only at American-style restaurants that charge $20 per serving. I ate a small portion for dinner, much less than my half, planning to have more for lunch the next day. I went out to meet friends at 7 p.m., so we ate at different times. When I got home around 11 p.m., I was too tired to check the fridge and went to bed. This morning I opened the refrigerator excited for my pulled pork lunch. Empty tub. Nothing left. Not even a small portion saved for me. I asked my fiancé if he ate all the pulled pork last night. He said yes, it was really good. I asked if he ate the entire tub and told him I only had a small portion. He asked if he wasn't supposed to finish it. I told him I was saving the rest for lunch and reminded him pulled pork is hard to find here. He said sorry he didn't realize and was hungry after work when he saw it. I was disappointed. I looked forward to that pulled pork all morning. This wasn't the first time this happened. I closed the fridge door harder than normal and walked to the pantry. Inside was a bag of chocolate biscuits, his favorite. There were just enough for one person. Without speaking, I took the bag, went to the table, and started eating them while looking at him. He asked if those were his chocolate biscuits. I said they were his biscuits, stressing the past tense. I ate them slowly, enjoying each one in a way I knew would make my point clear. His face changed from confused to understanding. He asked if this was about the pulled pork. I asked what gave him that idea. He said sorry again and should have checked if I wanted more before finishing it. I explained it wasn't just about checking but thinking of me first. He should have thought I might want some of my mom's special food too. This was about respect and consideration, not just food. I reminded him about our labeled food system that we'd abandoned after it seemed unnecessary. I brought up the birthday cake and the lasagna incidents from years ago. These patterns kept repeating despite our talks. He sat across from me, looking sorry. He said I was right and sometimes he doesn't think. It was a bad habit from growing up. Eat food before someone else does. But we're not at his parents' house with his siblings anymore, just us. He explained how last night unfolded from his perspective. He got home late at 9:30 p.m. after working overtime. His meeting ran long, and he missed dinner with his co-workers. He was hungry, saw the pulled pork, and didn't think about checking how much I'd eaten. He admitted, this wasn't an excuse, just context. I understood his explanation but still felt frustrated by the repetitive pattern. We were getting married in 6 months, and these small considerations mattered for our future. I offered him the last chocolate biscuit, but he said no. He said he deserved this small revenge, and told me to keep it. I said it wasn't revenge but a taste of his own medicine. He agreed that was fair. He promised to check with me about my half of treats before finishing them and said he needed to be more mindful. Then he suggested something new, a food journal in the kitchen where we'd write down what special foods we were saving and for when. This would be more practical than labels for everything. I nodded and ate the last biscuit. Then he suggested taking me out for lunch. He mentioned a new barbecue place downtown with real pulled pork. I said that was a great idea. He added we could stop at the import store for those special chocolate bars I like, the ones that cost $7 each but last me weeks. I smiled. This is why we've lasted 13 years despite small problems. He might be thoughtless sometimes but never mean and always tries to fix things. At the restaurant we talked more about how our different family food cultures affected us. His family's approach made him anxious about food security. My family's careful portioning made me territorial about my share. These weren't just habits but deeply ingrained survival tactics from childhood. He said the real issue was my family taught me to savor things, while his taught him to grab everything now or get nothing. I suggested finding a middle ground that respected both our needs. When he asked about the food journal and maybe labeling our food portions again, I said that wasn't a bad idea if it would help us both feel secure. The restaurant served us the most amazing pulled pork I'd ever tasted. It cost $18 per plate but was worth every penny. The chef used a 12-hour smoking process with apple wood chips. We both loved it so much that we ordered extra to take home. This time, when we got home, he divided it precisely into 2 containers before putting them in the fridge. He wrote our names on them with a date. He also bought a small whiteboard for the fridge where we could list foods that were off limits or being saved. It seemed like a small thing, but it showed he was taking this seriously. That night, he brought home a peace offering, a special chocolate cake from my favorite bakery that costs $25. He cut it exactly in half before I even asked and put my portion in a separate container. Small fights can help make relationships better if both people want to change. My fiancé isn't a monster. He's normal but sometimes eats without thinking. We all have flaws. After 13 years together, a few food mistakes aren't worth ending a good relationship. 3 weeks have passed since the pulled pork incident. The whiteboard system is working well. He checks before finishing anything in the fridge. I'm quicker to claim my share of treats when they appear and more vocal about what I'm saving. Yesterday I noticed he left the last piece of pizza in the box even though I knew he wanted it. When I asked him about it, he said he wasn't sure if I was saving it. I told him he could have it since I was full. Maybe we're both learning from each other after all. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.